Donald Trump has completed his decisive victory in the US presidential election with a projected win in Arizona. It means he defeated Kamala Harris in all 7 swing states. Mr. Trump's final electoral college total is nearly 100 votes higher than his Democratic rival. In Congress, the Republican Party is edging towards securing the House of Representatives. They already hold the Senate. Mr. Trump will visit the White House on Wednesday for a meeting with President Biden to discuss the transition of power. He's working on appointing his administration for his second term. He's also announced that neither his former Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, nor the former UN Ambassador, Nikki Haley, will be part of the new government. Ms. Haley described Mr. Trump as unhinged when she ran against him in the Republican primaries, although she eventually endorsed him. Our North America correspondent, Peter Bowes, sent this report.
We have taken back control of the Senate. Wow, that's good.
Within hours of the polls closing early on Wednesday morning, Donald Trump knew that he'd won. But the projected result from Arizona, a state that he lost 4 years ago, completes the election count and gives him a clean sweep of the swing states. A final tally of 312 votes overall in the US Electoral College, compared with 226 for Vice President Kamala Harris, a thumping victory. The president-elect is spending the weekend here at his home in Florida, where he's working on who to appoint to the top jobs in his new administration. Late last night, he took to social media to confirm 2 high-profile figures from his first presidency who won't be coming back. There'll be no invitation for the former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo or former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley to work for Donald Trump again. In Washington on Saturday, some people staged protests expressing concern about the impact of the new regime.
I think it puts me in a position where I feel like I'm not being accurately represented. It's frustrating. I feel a little powerless. I think that society was moving towards a direction that was much more open and progressive and inclusive of people like us. And it's scary to think that we might be going back in the next couple of years.
Joe Biden has invited the president-elect to meet him in the Oval Office at the White House on Wednesday. He's promised full cooperation from his administration during the transition of power over the coming weeks. Peter Bowes, BBC News.
Well, earlier I spoke to the Republican Senator Warren Peterson, and I asked him why Mr. Trump had won in Arizona.
Arizona is a great bellwether state to kind of feel where the rest of the country is. I think it's the same for all the states. It really boiled down to inflation, crime and the border. Also just this fact of, boys playing in girls' sports and teachers being forced to call boys girls or girls boys. And I think people are just fed up with it. It's just the extreme nature of the Democrats. You had all these former Democrats join his campaign, and he just put together a really broad coalition of really just kind of boiled down to common sense and let's fix the inflation and the economy and let's do it quick.
All right, let's discuss the border and Mexico and expected, promised deportations. Just take us through that.
Yeah, well, I think everybody, the whole country has been, especially Arizona being a border state, we're extremely impacted by a wide open border. And, it's truly incredible that Arizona, in fact, we just put something on our ballot to enforce federal law because President Biden, the Harris administration, were not enforcing the law, which says you can only enter the country through a legal port of entry. And so we just passed our own state law at the ballot with the voters that basically mirrored federal law. And now that President Trump has taken office, we know that he's going to enforce the federal law. It sounds like he's working on deportations. And, if you come to this country illegally, that should not come as a surprise that you risk deportation.
Mr. Peterson, second time around then for President Trump, President-elect Trump. What are you hoping to see from him this time? Many people say he would have certainly learned a lot, and we're all waiting to see who he's going to put in those key cabinet positions. What are you hoping to see this time around?
Yeah, I think he's learned a lot. I think he's a lot more politically politically savvy, obviously a successful businessman, but now I think he really knows how to manage politics as well a lot better. I think what we're hoping for is how about we balance the budget for the first time in 25 years? Let's reduce government spending. Let's stop devaluing our currency. Let's secure the border. Let's not telegraph to the whole world that they can just, run into this country illegally. And I think we're going to see things turn around really, really quickly. I think he's got great energy policy. Energy, when you have low energy, it drives down the cost of everything. And so, and quite frankly, world peace. And we're already seeing it. He hasn't even taken office. He doesn't take office till late January. And yet you're already seeing his influence on the world promoting peace.
Well, one of those influences, of course, is the talk of tariffs. You brought up the economics and what you're hoping to see. Do you get the sense that Americans understand that tariffs placed on countries abroad will also increase the cost of key items which they rely on at home, which in turn could well raise the cost of living?
Look, here's what I know for sure. If you stop spending money that you haven't received and you stop devaluing everyone's currency, inflation is going to go down. If you lower energy prices, then everything's going to go lower. You're going to drop the prices of everything. So those two things right there are going to dramatically decrease inflation. Now, what does he do with tariffs? I mean, he used tariffs before, and the Biden administration kept those tariffs. I don't think he's going to do anything drastic with that. I think he did good things with it before. I think we can trust him this time. I think he'll be measured in how he uses those tariffs. Sometimes, let's not forget, Donald Trump is a fantastic negotiator, and this message that he's sending about tariffs, whether he does it or not, we'll see. But it's certainly a great tool that he can use to negotiate with other countries.
The Republican Party has already taken control of the Senate and is on the verge of securing the House of Representatives, which would give Mr. Trump the ability to push his policies through Congress. Well, earlier I spoke to Anakah Green, a Republican strategist and a former speechwriter for the former President George W. Bush. She said that the vote showed how voters had rejected progressive politics in America.
It really shows it's a mandate that a majority of the country wants a change, wants the direction of the country to be turned around. It's a rejection of the radical progressive society that the radical left has been pushing on people. That's not how the Democratic Party has always been. It shows that Americans are really tired of being told that if they disagree or question this progressive orthodoxy, that just means they're racist, sexist, transphobic, homophobic. They become insulted. Their insults are being thrown at them, which is a bit ironic considering that President Trump is the one who is labeled in mainstream media as the one who is rude and insulting. It also shows they're tired of condescension that they receive from the mainstream media that shows that really, ultimately, our mainstream media institutions are out of touch with the mainstream voter. If you just consider Joe Rogan, who's a podcaster, has an audience of 16.4 million people. Contrast that, and he's just a podcaster, contrast that with the New York Times at 8.83 million. It really kind of shows the direction that the country's even in where they get their news.
OK, so at the moment, all eyes are on Mar-a-Lago and what is taking place there. A lot of discussions, I imagine. We do know some of the plans for the inauguration. And what do you make of Mr. Trump? You talk about what Americans want and the realities on the street. What do you make of him announcing who wouldn't be attending? I mean, is that conventional behavior?
It's not conventional for him to preemptively say, Nikki Haley is not coming into the administration or Mike Pompeo. It does signal to me that loyalty is going to continue to be very important to him and to his administration. One of the issues that the previous administration had, including his chiefs of staff, that his newly announced chief of staff, Susie Wiles, will contend with, is that At that time, Donald Trump tended to listen to the last person he spoke to. But this loyalty issue, and I've heard from friends of mine who did work for President Trump, that they had to take interviews and their loyalty to the president was questioned. And what that led to, unfortunately, was some people who would feign a loyalty they didn't actually have, which I think contributed to some of the chaos we saw, and is how so many of his former staffers would speak out in favor of Harris, because ultimately they weren't that conservative to begin with. And I think at this point he will have had to learn, hopefully, that that can't be the main test of somebody who works for him. Are they conservative? Are they going to be instituting his agenda? Not how much did they seem to publicly support him previously.
And that was Anakah Green there speaking to me earlier.